The Star Seeker glided silently through space, its pearlescent hull reflecting the distant light of Mars. Ambassador Zilvix stood on the bridge, his forearms clasped together in what his species considered a gesture of hope. The tall, slender alien watched as the red planet grew larger on their main screen. "We have detected two distinct groups of vessels near the human world called Mars," reported Navlith, the ship's sensor specialist. Her crystalline form sparkled under the soft lighting of the bridge. "Their energy signatures do not match our database." Zilvix nodded slowly. The Galactic Concordat had spent years studying this solar system from afar. Humanity was young, barely spacefaring by their standards, but showed remarkable progress for their age. "Remember," he said to his crew, "we must approach with utmost gentleness. These humans have never met beings from beyond their system." Aboard the Earth Defense Force vessel Intrepid, Captain Alan Wright's day was going from bad to worse. Pirates had been harassing their Mars colonial supply lines for weeks, and now they had cornered a particularly bold group trying to raid a civilian transport. "Status report," he barked, his weathered face illuminated by the red combat lighting of the bridge. Lieutenant Susan Carter's fingers danced across her weapons console. "Two pirate vessels, sir. Corvette class. They're using old Jupiter mining ships, heavily modified. We've got them pinned between us and the asteroid field." Wright allowed himself a small smile. Pirates always thought they could outmaneuver military ships in the asteroid fields. They were always wrong. "Keep our civilian transport behind us. Don't let them." "Captain," the sensor officer's voice cut through the tension. "New contact. Large vessel approaching from Sector 7. It's bigger than anything we've ever seen." Wright's blood ran cold. "Show me." The main screen shifted, displaying a massive ship that seemed to glow with its own inner light. It was beautiful, alien, and heading straight for them. "No registration, no known configuration," Carter reported, her voice tight. "Sir, it's positioning itself between us and the pirates. Classic reinforcement formation." Wright's jaw clenched. Of course the pirates would have backup. But something this big, this advanced. "All hands, combat stations. Load combat drones. Lieutenant Carter, give me solutions on all three hostile vessels." On the Starseeker, Zilvix watched in confusion as the human vessel's energy signature suddenly spiked. "They appear to be activating their defense systems," Navlith reported, her crystalline form vibrating with concern. "Ambassador, I'm detecting weapons charging." "Impossible," Zilvix said softly. "We sent the standard peaceful contact protocols. All our weapons are powered down. Our shields are transparent to their scans." He stepped forward, his long fingers spreading wide. "Open a communication channel. All frequencies, all formats." The Star Seeker's computers began broadcasting the Concordat's universal peace message, a complex series of mathematical equations and peaceful imagery designed over centuries to convey non-hostile intent to any spacefaring race. "Sir, they're broadcasting something," Carter reported. "It's not like any communication protocol I've seen. Complex data streams, could be some kind of cyber attack." Wright had seen enough. Pirates were getting cleverer every day, and he wasn't about to let his ship get hacked. "Offensive pattern Delta. Launch drones. Let's show these pirates what happens when they bring reinforcements into our space." The Intrepid's drone bay doors opened, releasing a swarm of combat drones. They streaked toward the Star Seeker, their formation perfect after countless drills and real combat missions. Zilvix watched in horror as dozens of small objects launched from the human ship. "What are they doing?" Navlith. "Analysis. Small automated vessels," she chimed, her crystal surface clouding with distress. "They appear to be." "Ambassador, they're weapons platforms." "Impossible," Zilvix whispered again, but this time with growing dread. "No race would attack during first contact. It goes against all known behavioral patterns." The pirate vessels, seeing their chance, suddenly broke formation and made a run for it. Their engines flared bright as they pushed to maximum acceleration, leaving their supposed reinforcement to deal with the Intrepid. Wright noticed the maneuver immediately. "Oh no, you don't," he growled. "Carter, split drone control. Half for our new friend, half for the runners." "Sir," Carter acknowledged, her fingers flying over her console. The drone swarm split perfectly, one group maintaining its course toward the Star Seeker, while the other curved away in pursuit of the fleeing pirates. Aboard the Star Seeker, chaos erupted as the crew faced something none of them had trained for: actual combat. Warning signals chimed as the human drones approached, their sensors painting the alien vessel with targeting data. "Ambassador," Navlith's usually melodic voice had taken on a sharp edge. "The small vessels are scanning us. They're targeting our engine sections and what they must think are our weapons arrays." Zilvix felt his inner peace, maintained through decades of diplomatic service, crumbling. "Raise shields," he ordered, breaking centuries of first contact protocol. "Begin evasive pattern." The deck shuddered as the first wave of drones reached them. They hadn't fired, instead performing close-range scans that the Star Seeker's crew interpreted as attacks. The massive alien ship began to move, its elegant form turning in space as it tried to withdraw. Wright watched the alien vessel's movements with growing suspicion. Something wasn't right. Pirates didn't retreat like this. Their movements were too smooth, too controlled, and they weren't returning fire despite clearly having weapons ports. "Sir," Carter said, her voice uncertain for the first time. "Their shield configuration, it's like nothing I've seen. They're not combat shields. They're more like navigation shields for asteroid fields." Before Wright could process this information, the pirate situation demanded his attention. The fleeing ships had reached the asteroid field and were attempting to lose their pursuers in the chaos of tumbling space rocks. "Focus fire on the pirates," Wright ordered, years of instinct taking over. "Standard containment pattern. Don't let them escape into the belt." The drone swarm chasing the pirates opened fire, their small but powerful weapons blazing in the darkness of space. One pirate ship took a direct hit to its engines and began to tumble, while the other found itself boxed in by precisely placed shots. The Star Seeker's crew watched in amazement as the human vessel's weapons disabled the two ships with surgical precision. Their sensors recorded everything: the accuracy of the attacks, the coordination of the drones, the perfect prediction of escape vectors. "Ambassador," Navlith said quietly, "I believe we may have miscalculated something about this species." Zilvix could only nod as he watched the human ship dispatch its opponents with practiced ease. In all the Concordat's history of peaceful exploration, they had never encountered a species whose first instinct was to attack. Yet these humans had not only attacked, but had done so with disturbing skill and coordination. "Send another peace signal," he ordered, his voice steady despite his inner turmoil. "Add our emergency diplomatic codes. All of them." The Star Seeker lit up with patterns of light, broadcasting peace signals so powerful they were visible to the naked eye. Aboard the Intrepid, Carter's console lit up with warnings. "Sir, the alien vessel is broadcasting again, but different this time. These patterns, they match ancient Earth peace symbols. I'm seeing mathematical constants, DNA patterns, and, sir, I think they're trying to talk to us." Wright stared at the main screen, watching as the beautiful alien ship blazed with light patterns. The realization of what might have just happened hit him like a physical blow. "Stand down, drones," he ordered quietly. "Get me Earth command. Now." He sank back in his chair, his mind racing. "I think we may have just tried to arrest a diplomatic mission." In the silence that followed, two very different crews tried to make sense of what had just happened. For the humans, it was the dawning realization that they had nearly started an interstellar incident. For the Concordat crew, it was the shocking revelation that they had found a species to whom peace was not the natural state of existence. First contact had been achieved, but not in any way either side had expected. And as the Starseeker and the Intrepid faced each other in the space near Mars, both crews knew that the galaxy had just become a much more complicated place. Lieutenant Susan Carter had never seen anything like the alien ship's movement patterns. As she watched her tactical display, something kept nagging at her trained mind. The Starseeker's reactions weren't making sense from a combat perspective. "Captain," she said, breaking the tense silence on the Intrepid's bridge. "Their evasive maneuvers, they're inefficient. It's like they've never actually dodged weapons fire before." Captain Alan Wright leaned forward in his chair, studying the main screen. They were still waiting for a response from Earth Command, and the situation felt balanced on a knife's edge. "Explain." "Look at their turn radius." Carter pointed to her display. "They have incredible engine power, but they're not using it properly. No combat experience. It's like watching a civilian yacht try to dodge pirates." Before Wright could respond, the sensor officer called out, "Sir, the pirate vessels are powering up their engines again." On the Starseeker's bridge, Ambassador Zilvix and his crew were still trying to make sense of the humans' aggressive response when Navlith's crystalline form pulsed with alarm. "Ambassador, the 2 damaged vessels are activating their power cores. The energy readings are highly unstable." Zilvix moved to her station, all 4 of his arms spreading in concern as he saw the readings. "Are they attempting to flee?" "No," Navlith's voice chimed with worry. "These energy patterns suggest, Ambassador, I believe they're overloading their cores deliberately." Wright's experienced eye caught the danger immediately. "Carter, those pirates are going to blow their cores. Standard suicide play. They'll take us all out rather than be captured." "Calculating blast radius," Carter reported quickly. "Sir, if both ships go up, the explosion will damage the alien vessel. Their shields aren't designed for this kind of impact." Wright made his decision instantly. "Move to protect the diplomatic vessel. All drones, form barrier pattern. Carter, get me solutions to disable those cores before they blow." The Intrepid's engines flared to life, the warship moving with practiced precision to position itself between the Starseeker and the pirate vessels. The drone swarm reformed, creating a defensive screen that would help absorb the blast. On the Starseeker, the crew watched in confusion as the human ship that had just attacked them now moved to protect them. "They're defending us?" Navlith asked, her crystalline surface shimmering with uncertainty. "Their ship is much smaller than ours," Zilvix observed. "Why would they risk themselves?" The answer came in the form of action. The Intrepid's drones launched a coordinated attack on the pirate vessels, targeting specific points on their hulls with surgical precision. Carter's experience showed as she directed the drones to hit exactly the right spots to disable the overloading cores. "First target neutralized," she reported calmly. Moving on to second vessel, her fingers danced across her console, redirecting the drone swarm. "Captain, the alien ship's shields are fluctuating. I don't think they understand they need to reinforce their aft sections." Wright opened a channel. "This is Captain Alan Wright of the Earth Defense Force vessel Intrepid to the alien ship. Adjust your shield configuration to match our transmitted pattern. Repeat, adjust shields to match pattern. Your current setup won't survive the blast if we fail." Aboard the Starseeker, the crew scrambled to understand the human transmission. "They're sending us shield harmonics," Navlith reported, her voice rising with surprise. "These patterns, they're designed specifically to defend against energy core detonations. Apply them," Zilvix ordered immediately. They clearly have experience with this situation. The Starseeker's shields shifted, their pearly glow taking on a more structured pattern. Just in time, as the second pirate vessel's core began its final overload sequence. "Can't stop this one," Carter called out. "Detonation in 10 seconds. Brace for impact." The Intrepid's crew, veterans of countless space battles, secured themselves for the coming shockwave. The drone swarm pulled in tight, forming a defensive wall between the explosion and the 2 ships. When the pirate ship exploded, it lit up the space around Mars like a small sun. The Intrepid shuddered under the impact, but held steady. Behind them, the Starseeker's newly configured shields deflected the worst of the blast. "Damage report," Wright commanded as the light faded. "Minor hull stress on decks 3 through 5, came the response. "Drones at 60% strength. We lost some in the blast, sir. The alien vessel. They're intact. Their shields held." On the Starseeker, the crew was still processing what had happened. Their sensors had recorded everything. The humans' quick decision to protect them, the precise attacks to prevent the first explosion, and the defensive formation that had saved both ships from the second blast. "Ambassador," Navlith said quietly, "I've analyzed their actions. The humans, they sacrificed their own defensive units to protect us. They placed their smaller vessel in harm's way to shield our larger one. These are not the actions of simple aggressors." Zilvix nodded slowly. "No, they are not. They are the actions of warriors with a strong moral code." He moved to the communication station. "Open a channel to the human vessel." The view screen lit up, showing Captain Wright's bridge. The humans looked tense but professional, their combat stations manned with practiced efficiency. "Captain Wright," Zilvix spoke carefully, "I am Ambassador Zilvix of the Galactic Concordat. We came here seeking peaceful first contact with humanity. I believe there has been a significant misunderstanding." Wright's expression showed a mix of relief and embarrassment. "Ambassador, I believe you're right. We mistook your arrival for reinforcements for these pirates. We've been dealing with raids on our colonial shipping for months. Yet when you realized the danger to us, you acted to protect those you had just seen as enemies," Zilvix observed. "You were an unknown contact who hadn't actually fired on us," Wright replied simply. "Once we realized you might be diplomatic, your safety became our priority. It's just what we do." The ambassador's forearms moved in a gesture of deep thought. "Captain, I believe we have much to learn from each other. My species has never encountered a race that maintains such military readiness, yet also shows such honor in its application." "Sir," Carter interrupted, "Earth Command is responding. They're sending a diplomatic team to Mars orbit. ETA 3 hours. Wright nodded to her, then turned back to the view screen. "Ambassador, if you're willing, I suggest we move to a stable orbit and wait for our diplomatic course. I promise no more misunderstandings with our drones." Zilvix made the Aetherian gesture of agreement. "We would be honored, Captain. Though I must admit, your demonstration of tactical capability was educational. The Concordat has long believed that advanced species naturally evolve beyond warfare. We may need to reconsider this assumption." As the two ships moved into Mars orbit, both crews began to relax slightly. The humans were still combat ready, but no longer saw the aliens as a threat. The Concordat crew, for their part, found themselves fascinated by the efficiency and discipline they saw in their human counterparts. Lieutenant Carter watched the Starseeker's movements on her tactical display. The alien ship was now trying to match their orbital insertion patterns, learning from the humans' more practiced approach to space navigation. "They learn fast," she remarked to Captain Wright. "Let's hope we learn fast, too," Wright replied, watching the beautiful alien vessel. "Something tells me the galaxy just got a lot more interesting." Neither crew knew it yet, but this odd first meeting between a peaceful species and a warrior race was about to change the course of galactic history. The misunderstanding was ending, but the real challenges were just beginning. The Mars Diplomatic Center's main conference room was filled with an awkward silence. Ambassador Peter Nash sat across from the alien delegation, trying to hide his amazement at their appearance. The Aetherians, with their 4 arms and silvery skin, were nothing like humanity had imagined their first alien contact would be. Commander Diana Wells stood behind Nash, her military uniform crisp and perfect. She watched the aliens with trained eyes, noting how they seemed uncomfortable with her presence. The third human in the room, Captain Alan Wright, sat quietly, still processing the events from earlier. "So," Ambassador Nash began carefully, You're saying your entire civilization has never fought a war. Ambassador Zilvix made a flowing gesture with his upper arms. The Galactic Concordat solved the issue of violence thousands of years ago. We evolved beyond it. All member races did. All of them. Commander Wells couldn't keep the disbelief from her voice. How do you handle conflicts? Resource disputes? Territory claims? We discuss. We negotiate. We find solutions that benefit all parties. Navlith chimed in, her crystalline form catching the room's light. Violence is simply unnecessary. Nash shared a look with Wells. Perhaps we should show them. Wells nodded and stepped forward. Computer, display Earth historical timeline. Focus on major conflicts. The room's holographic display came to life, showing the scrolling timeline of human history. The Concordat representatives watched in growing horror as war after war appeared before them. This can't be accurate, Zilvix whispered. Your species would have destroyed itself. We came close a few times, Nash admitted. But we learned. We adapted. Each conflict taught us something new, not just about fighting, but about peace. Your young train for combat, Navlith observed, her surface rippling with confusion. We saw images of your schools and sports. Even your games simulate conflict. Commander Wells smiled slightly. We call it being prepared. Those games teach teamwork, strategy, and discipline. They help channel competitive instincts in healthy ways. The display shifted to show modern Earth. We still maintain our military, Wells continued, but now it primarily protects trade routes, responds to natural disasters, and yes, deals with pirates like the ones you encountered. Zilvix studied the images carefully. Yet your Captain Wright chose to protect our vessel, even after believing we were hostile. This suggests your warfare has rules. We call it ethics. Wright spoke up for the first time. Honor. There are lines we don't cross. Protecting civilians, or in your case, diplomatic vessels, is fundamental. Nash nodded. Humanity learned the hard way that victory at any cost usually costs too much. Our military strength exists to preserve peace, not just to wage war. The Concordat representatives conferred among themselves in their musical language. The humans waited patiently, though Wells noticed how the aliens flinched every time she shifted her stance. We have accessed your public information networks, Navlith finally said. Your entertainment media. Much of it depicts conflict, fighting, war. Even your children consume these stories. Why? Nash leaned forward. Those stories often explore the consequences of violence. They help us remember why we need to be careful with our strength. They're warnings as much as entertainment. And your children? Zilvix asked. They practice combat movements in organized groups. They play with toy weapons. Better they learn discipline and respect for power early, Wells explained. Understanding the responsibility that comes with strength is part of our education. The aliens fell silent again. The humans could almost see them struggling with these foreign concepts. Show them the other side, Wright suggested quietly. Nash nodded. Computer, display Earth's humanitarian missions, last decade. The holographic display changed, now showing Earth ships delivering aid to colonies hit by solar storms. Marines rescuing civilians from natural disasters. Military vessels protecting civilian ships from pirates. This is the same military? Zilvix asked, his tone surprised. The same training that makes us good at fighting makes us good at helping, Wells explained. Quick decisions, discipline, working under pressure. These skills aren't just for combat. Navlith's crystalline form brightened slightly. Your history speaks of warriors who followed codes of honor, protectors who used their strength to defend others. Knights, samurai, peacekeepers, Nash nodded. Yes, the warrior who protects is a constant theme in our culture. And now you protect your whole solar system, Zilvix mused. Your colonies, your trade routes, your civilians, even unknown alien ships that you initially thought were hostile. Wright smiled slightly. As I said before, Ambassador, it's just what we do. The meeting continued for hours. The Concordat representatives asked endless questions about human military history, seeming both horrified and fascinated. The humans, in turn, were amazed by stories of a civilization that had truly achieved perfect peace. As the day drew to a close, Zylvik stood in his species' formal manner. "We must report to the Concordat Council. This meeting has given us much to consider." "Of course," Nash replied, standing as well. "We'll need to inform our own government about everything we've learned. This is a big adjustment for everyone." Indeed, Zylvix made a gesture that his translator indicated meant deep thought. "We believe that any species capable of reaching the stars must have evolved beyond warfare. Now we find one that reached the stars because of warfare, yet uses that knowledge to protect peace." Commander Wells stepped forward, causing the aliens to flinch slightly again. "Ambassador, if I may, humanity doesn't want war. We're just prepared for it. There's a difference." Zylvix considered this. "Perhaps. But this preparation, this readiness you maintain, it disturbs us. Yet we cannot deny its effectiveness against those pirates." "Sometimes," Nash said carefully, "the best way to avoid a fight is to be very, very good at fighting." As the aliens departed for their ship, Navlith turned to her ambassador. "Their ways are strange to us, but they protected us without hesitation. Perhaps the Concordat has something to learn from these humans." Zylvix watched as Commander Wells efficiently organized the security detail for their departure. "Yes," he said quietly, "though I fear the Council will not like what we have to report. A species that maintains peace through strength. It challenges everything we believe about civilization's natural progress." Back in the conference room, Nash looked at Wells and Wright. "Well, that was interesting." "They're scared of us," Wells noted. "Did you see how they reacted to anything military?" "Can you blame them?" Wright asked. "We just showed them thousands of years of warfare in one afternoon. To them, we probably look like barbarians." "Barbarians who save lives," Nash corrected. "Don't forget that part." They seemed to understand it, even if it made them uncomfortable. As the three humans prepared to make their reports, none of them could shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Humanity had made first contact, but they had also introduced the galaxy to a concept it had forgotten: the warrior who guards the peace. The real question was, how would the galaxy respond to this revelation? Admiral Christopher Hayes stood in Earth's Strategic Command Center, staring at the emergency transmission playing on the main screen. The message had arrived simultaneously at Earth and the Concordat's diplomatic vessel. Its contents made his blood run cold. "Play it again," he ordered, his voice firm, but quiet. The screen flickered, showing a damaged alien ship. Its design was different from the Concordat vessels. Darker, more angular. The alien captain speaking was clearly injured, green blood visible on their face. "The swarm comes. They have already taken 3 systems. Our defenses, worthless. They consume everything. The Concordat must." Static interrupted the message briefly. "No negotiation possible. They only destroy. Only consume. Send warriors if you have them. Send." The message cut off in a burst of static. Ambassador Peter Nash stood next to Hayes, his diplomatic calm cracking slightly. The Concordat representatives are in panic. They've never dealt with anything like this. Because they've never had to fight. Commander Diana Wells added from her station. "Their whole civilization is built on the assumption that every species can be reasoned with." The room's door slid open, and Captain Alan Wright rushed in. "Sir, long-range sensors are picking up massive disturbances in the sectors mentioned in the distress call. Whatever's out there, it's big." Hayes nodded slowly. "Get me the Concordat ship." The main screen changed to show Ambassador Zylvix's face. The usually composed alien looked shaken. "Admiral Hayes, we have confirmed the message's authenticity. The swarm, we thought they were just stories. Legends from the galaxy's outer rim. Tell me everything you know, Hayes said firmly. They are a species that consumes, Zilvix explained, his four arms moving in distressed patterns. Not just resources, but entire civilizations. Our oldest records speak of them, but we believed. We thought they were extinct. Clearly not, Wright commented. Ambassador, how did your people deal with them in the past? Zilvix's silver skin paled slightly. We did not. The stories say they simply disappeared. No one knows why. Hayes shared a look with Wells. So your people have no defense plans, no military protocols. Admiral, Navlith's crystalline form appeared beside Zilvix. The Concordat hasn't fought a war in over 10,000 years. We wouldn't even know where to begin. Hayes straightened his uniform. Then it's a good thing you met us first. He turned to Wells. Commander, implement Emergency Protocol Delta. I want every combat-ready ship on alert. Wells moved quickly to her station, her fingers flying over the controls. Sending orders now, sir. The Fourth Fleet can reach the affected sectors in 48 hours. Wait, Zilvix interrupted. You're preparing for war. Just like that. Ambassador, Hayes said patiently, this is why we maintain our military. For situations exactly like this. Nash stepped forward. Admiral, the Concordat Council is requesting an emergency meeting. They're asking for our help. The Concordat is asking for military aid. Wright couldn't hide his surprise. They were horrified by our combat drones just days ago. Fear of extinction is a powerful motivator, Hayes observed dryly. He turned back to the screen. Ambassador Zilvix, we'll need all the information your people have on these swarm creatures. Star charts, sensor readings, those old legends, everything. The alien diplomat nodded quickly. Of course, but Admiral, you should know. The Concordat's ships aren't armed. We have no weapons, no tactical training. Our crews have never even seen combat. Then we'll protect you, Hayes said simply. That's what we do. The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. Earth's military machine, maintained through centuries of peace and war, rumbled to life. Ships were deployed, crews mobilized, and emergency protocols activated with practiced efficiency. In the Strategic Command Center, Wells studied the tactical displays showing fleet movements. The Concordat's scared, sir. Their ships are moving in random patterns, no coordination. They'll be easy targets. Hayes nodded. Right. Take the Intrepid and rendezvous with their nearest fleet. Start teaching them basic defensive formations. Wells, coordinate with our allies in the Mars Defense Force. I want a second line ready if the first falls. Sir, Nash interrupted. The Concordat Council is online. The main screen lit up, showing a collection of alien faces. Each species was different. Some crystalline like Navlith, others gaseous beings in containment suits, and several that defied easy description. All looked worried. Council members, Hayes began. I'm Admiral Christopher Hayes of Earth's Defense Force. We stand ready to assist. One of the council members, a being of pure energy, spoke. Admiral, our people have lived in peace for millennia. Now we face an enemy that cannot be reasoned with. We need your help. And you'll have it, Hayes assured them. But you need to understand something. This won't be like the stories in your histories. Real combat is messy, dangerous, and harsh. Are you prepared for that? The council members looked at each other uncertainly. Another spoke up. We have no choice. The swarm will not negotiate. They do not respond to peace signals. They simply consume. Hayes straightened. Then let me be clear. Earth and her colonies will fight to protect you. But we need your cooperation. Your ships may not have weapons, but they have other capabilities we can use. Together, we might have a chance. Together, the energy being asked. You would trust us in combat, even though we have no experience. Everyone has to start somewhere, Hayes replied. Captain Wright will begin training your crews in basic combat maneuvers. Commander Wells will coordinate your fleet movements with ours. We'll protect you, but we need you to learn quickly. The council chamber erupted in discussion, their various languages creating a strange symphony. Finally, Zilvik spoke for them all. We accept your help, Admiral, and thank you. Perhaps we were wrong about the nature of warriors. As the transmission ended, Nash turned to Hayes. That couldn't have been easy for them. Their whole philosophy is based on peaceful resolution. Hayes watched the tactical display, where hundreds of ships were now moving into defensive positions. Sometimes the universe doesn't give us the luxury of choosing our path. They're learning that lesson now. Sir, Wells called out, long-range sensors are picking up something at the edge of charted space. Multiple signatures, moving fast. The swarm? Wright asked. Most likely. Hayes stood straighter, his face set with determination. Send word to all ships, human and Concordat alike. The enemy is coming, and we will be ready. As alarms began to sound throughout Earth's defense network, Hayes couldn't help but appreciate the irony. Humanity, long feared by the peaceful races for their warrior nature, was now their only hope for survival. The real test was about to begin. Major Lisa Reynolds watched the alien crew fumble through another basic combat drill. The Concordat ship's bridge was beautiful, with sweeping curves and soft lights, but it wasn't designed for war. Neither were its crew members. No, she said firmly but kindly. You can't just run away when enemy ships appear. You need to maintain formation. The defensive screen only works if everyone holds their position. The crystalline alien at the helm chimed in distress. But Major, our sensors indicate multiple hostile targets. Survival probability increases if we scatter. That's true for one ship, Reynolds explained patiently. But we're protecting everyone, not just ourselves. Trust in the formation. Trust in each other. Chief Engineer Brandon Morris looked up from where he was installing weapon systems on the alien vessel. You should see their engine setup, Major. These ships could outrun anything we've got. They're just not used to thinking tactically. The past week had been a blur of activity. While Admiral Hayes coordinated the overall defense strategy, Reynolds and Morris had been tasked with preparing the Concordat ships for battle. It wasn't easy. Watch again, Reynolds ordered. The holographic training display activated, showing a simulation of Earth ships in defensive formation. See how each ship covers the others. That's how we survive. That's how we win. On another Concordat vessel, Captain Alan Wright was having similar challenges. Your ships have incredible sensor arrays, he told the alien crew. But you're not using them effectively. You can't just look for signs of life. You need to track engine signatures, weapon energy patterns, movement predictions. Ambassador Zilvik stood at the back of the bridge, watching the training with worried eyes. Captain, my people, we're trying to understand. But this goes against everything we believe. Wright turned to face him. Ambassador, I know this is difficult, but the swarm isn't giving us a choice. Either we fight together, or we die separately. Back in Earth's Strategic Command Center, Commander Diana Wells reviewed the progress reports. Sir, the Concordat crews are learning, but slowly. They've spent their entire history avoiding conflict. Now we're asking them to embrace it. Admiral Hayes nodded grimly. How are the weapon installations coming along? Chief Morris reports 60% completion. The Concordat ships have amazing power systems. Their weapons are actually more effective than ours once installed. They just never thought to build them. And the crews? Wells brought up a training simulation on the main screen. Major Reynolds has them running drills constantly. They're getting better at formation flying, but combat reactions are still poor. They hesitate too much. They're afraid, Ambassador Nash observed from his station. Not just of the enemy, but of becoming like them, of losing their peaceful nature. Hayes watched the simulation thoughtfully. Show me the Intrepid's training group again. The screen changed to show Captain Wright's efforts. His approach was different. Instead of focusing on combat, he was teaching the aliens how to use their existing skills in new ways. Look at that, Hayes pointed. Wright's got them using their scientific sensors as tactical arrays. They're already experts at detailed scanning. He's just changing the target. Wells studied the display. Sir, that might be the answer. Instead of trying to turn them into warriors, we help them fight their own way. Hayes finished. Get me a channel to all training groups. Soon, Reynolds, Morris, and all other human trainers were on screen. Hayes laid out his new approach. Stop trying to make them fight like us. Work with what they already know. Their sensors become targeting systems. Their shield harmonics become weapon frequencies. Their emergency maneuvers become combat evasions. Reynolds' eyes lit up with understanding. Of course, they're not soldiers, but they're brilliant scientists. We just need to redirect that knowledge. Over the next few days, the training changed. Instead of teaching combat directly, the humans helped the Concordat crews adapt their existing skills for defense. Chief Morris discovered that the aliens' atmospheric purification systems could be modified into point defense weapons. Their stellar observation equipment became long-range targeting systems. Their communication arrays were perfect for electronic warfare. In one training session, Reynolds watched in amazement as a Concordat crew used their deep space research protocols to predict enemy movements with incredible accuracy. They're not thinking like warriors, she reported to Hayes. They're treating it like a complex scientific problem to solve. And that's exactly what we need, Hayes replied. The swarm won't expect this. They'll be ready for our standard military tactics. But this is something new. Even the Concordat crews began to show more confidence. During one simulation, a crystalline helmsman surprised everyone by executing a perfect defensive maneuver. How did you do that? Reynolds asked. I apply our solar prominence observation protocols, the alien explained. The energy patterns of enemy weapons are similar to plasma eruptions. We've been studying those for centuries. Ambassador Zilvix watched these developments with mixed feelings. We are becoming more effective, he told Captain Wright. But I worry about what this means for our future. Will we lose our peaceful nature? Wright shook his head. Ambassador, there's a difference between being capable of fighting and being warlike. We're teaching you to defend yourselves, not to conquer others. The distinction seems subtle, Zilvix observed. But it's crucial, Wright insisted. Look at how your people are approaching this. You're not learning to destroy, you're learning to protect. You're using your knowledge to preserve life, not take it. In the command center, Hayes reviewed the latest training results. The Concordat ships were now operating at 70% combat effectiveness. Not perfect, but far better than anyone had expected. The swarm's getting closer, Wells reported. Long-range sensors show them consuming everything in their path. No survivors in any system they've taken. Hayes nodded grimly. How long? At their current speed, they'll reach the first Concordat system in 26 hours. The Admiral stood, looking at the tactical display showing both human and alien ships in formation. Send word to all vessels. Training is over. This is real now. As the message went out, Reynolds gathered her alien crew for one final briefing. Remember what you've learned, she told them. You're not warriors by nature, and that's okay. You're protectors now. Scientists who fight not because you love violence, but because you love peace enough to defend it. The crystalline helmsman chimed softly. We understand now, Major. Sometimes the path to peace requires strength. Throughout the combined fleet, similar scenes played out. Humans and aliens working together, each bringing their own strengths to the coming battle. The Concordat ships might not have been built for war, but they were being prepared for something perhaps more important. Survival. As the final hours ticked down, Admiral Hayes sent one last message to all ships. Remember your training. Trust each other. Protect each other. The enemy thinks they're hunting peaceful prey. Let's show them how peace learns to bite back. The battle was coming, and for the first time in their history, the Concordat was ready to fight. The swarm arrived exactly as predicted. Their ships were ugly things, all sharp angles and dark metal, moving like a cloud of locusts across space. The combined human Concordat fleet waited in formation, every crew tense and ready. Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the enemy approach. All ships, hold position. Remember your training. Trust your allies. Captain Alan Wright's voice came over the comm. Sir, the Intrepid's battle group is ready. Concordat ships are maintaining formation. Surprisingly well. They've learned fast. Commander Diana Wells noted from her tactical station. The swarm's in range in 5 minutes. On the Concordat flagship, Ambassador Zilvix watched the approaching enemy with all 4 hands clasped tightly. They're not even trying to communicate, he said softly. They're not here to talk. Major Lisa Reynolds replied from her advisory position. But we're ready for them. The first wave of swarm ships attacked without warning. They broke into smaller groups, trying to split the defensive formation. But the Concordat ships, guided by their human allies, held firm. Now, Hayes ordered, show them what you can do. The Concordat science vessels, their peaceful technology turned to war, sprang into action. Their powerful sensors, once used to study stars, now tracked every enemy ship with perfect precision. The swarm's attempted surprise maneuvers were predicted and countered before they even began. Target data flowing to all human ships. Wells reported, the Concordat's sensor net is better than anything we've ever had. Wright's voice crackled over the comm again. Intrepid engaging. Concordat ships, maintain your positions. Let us handle the attacking runs. The battle unfolded like a deadly dance. Human warships struck hard at the swarm, their attacks guided by the Concordat's incredible sensor data. When the swarm tried to counterattack, they found their targets protected by shields harmonized to frequencies they couldn't breach. On one of the Concordat ships, Chief Engineer Brandon Morris watched in amazement as the alien crew coordinated their actions. They weren't fighting like warriors. They were approaching combat like a complex scientific problem. Energy spike in Sector 7. A crystalline sensor operator chimed. Pattern matches their previous attack run, projecting likely targets and sending data to human vessels. The swarm's tactics grew more aggressive as their initial attacks failed. They launched a massive assault on what they thought was a weak point in the formation. Instead, they found themselves caught in a trap. Now, Ambassador, Reynolds called out, just like we practiced. Zilvix gave the order, and dozens of Concordat ships activated their modified atmospheric processors simultaneously. The space around the swarm ships suddenly filled with particles that interfered with their sensors and weapons. They're blind, Wells reported with satisfaction. All ships, concentrate fire. The human fleet struck hard, their attacks devastating now that the enemy's defenses were compromised. The swarm ships, for the first time, began to retreat. But the battle wasn't over. The swarm regrouped and launched another attack, this time targeting the Concordat vessels directly. They'd identified the source of their tactical disadvantage. Protect the sensor ships, Hayes ordered. All combat vessels, close formation. Wright's Intrepid led the defense, its drones creating a protective screen around the threatened Concordat ships. But the swarm's numbers were overwhelming. We can't hold them all back, Wright reported tensely. There's too many. That's when something unexpected happened. The Concordat ships, instead of breaking formation in fear, moved with purpose. Their crews, applying centuries of scientific knowledge to warfare, had found a solution. They're using their gravitational research arrays, Morris reported in awe. They're creating localized distortions in space. The swarm ships suddenly found themselves fighting not just the human fleet, but space itself. Their formations were pulled apart, their targeting disrupted by microscopic gravitational lenses. Keep pushing, Hayes ordered. Don't let them regroup. The battle raged for hours. The swarm, for the first time in their long history of consumption, found themselves facing an enemy they couldn't understand. The humans fought with practiced skill, But it was the Concordat's scientific innovation that truly turned the tide. Finally, after one last devastating attack coordinated perfectly between human and alien ships, the remaining swarm vessels fled. The combined fleet had won. As the all-clear signals went out, cheers erupted across human ships. On the Concordat vessels, their crews expressed joy in their own ways. Chimes, glows, and harmonious vibrations. Ambassador Zilvix turned to Reynolds, his silver skin shimmering with emotion. "We did it. We actually fought. And won." "You did more than that," Reynolds replied. "You found your own way to fight. You didn't lose yourselves. You proved that peace and strength can coexist." In the aftermath, Admiral Hayes met with the Concordat Council. The alien leaders were changed by the experience, their previous certainties about peace and violence shaken but not destroyed. "We understand now," one council member said, their energy form pulsing steadily. "True peace isn't about avoiding conflict. It's about being strong enough to protect what matters." Hayes nodded. "And you've proven that there are many kinds of strength. Your scientific knowledge, turned to defense, was as powerful as any weapon." The council chambers were quiet for a moment before Zilvix spoke. "Perhaps this is why the universe brought our peoples together. You taught us to defend ourselves, while we showed you that even in war, one need not abandon peace." Later, on the Intrepid's bridge, Captain Wright watched as human and Concordat ships worked together to repair battle damage. "They're not warriors," he told his crew, "and they never will be. But there's something just as valuable. They're protectors now." "The galaxy's changing," Commander Wells observed from her station. "The peaceful races have learned to defend themselves, and we've learned there's more than one way to fight." Admiral Hayes stood in Earth's Strategic Command Center, looking at the battle reports. The victory had cost them ships and lives, but it had also forged something new. An alliance between warriors and peacekeepers, each learning from the other. "Send word to all ships," he ordered. "The swarm will return. But next time, they won't find peaceful races unprepared. They'll find us standing together, humanity's strength combined with the Concordat's wisdom." As the message went out, human and alien crews throughout the fleet understood its meaning. They had proved that peace wasn't weakness, and that strength wasn't just about weapons. They had shown the galaxy that sometimes the best warriors are those who fight not for glory, but for peace. The stars seemed a little brighter that day, as if they too were celebrating this new understanding. The peaceful races had learned to defend themselves, and humanity had found allies who reminded them why they fought in the first place. War Incarnate had met the peaceful races, but the outcome had surprised everyone. In the end, it wasn't just about victory in battle. It was about finding balance between peace and strength, between science and combat, between protecting and destroying. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly as it should be.